All right? Well, those cows, herbivores, have a palatability index just like you and I. I don't know about you, but I'm an extremely discriminatory ice cream eater. I'm very picky. I only eat ice cream if I'm alone or with somebody. That's the only time I eat ice cream. Well, you know what? The cows have their palatability index too. And all these plants look, you know, kind of the same to us. But if you had a nose the size of a cow, you'd be pretty, you'd take your tongue in here and you would select one and select away from others, and you would pick through. And so when the herd is mobbed up in a group because of predator pressure, they're moving, and because of this mobbing, they learn to eat very aggressively. It's like, you know, if you go out for your 10th anniversary wedding celebration dinner, and you spring, you know, for the first time in 10 years, you spring for a white tablecloth, fine dining wine, you know, $100 a plate special dinner night. You might sit there and the conversation and the beauty of the wife and the food and the ambiance, you might dawdle over that meal and talk about the special nuances of taste in the special, you know, crouton de futon de hooba, whatever, right? And you'll enjoy all that little nuance, okay? And you might linger over that for 2 hours, right? Compare that to a bunch of Army recruits fresh in off a 10-hour hike that have a bunch of MREs in front of them. They're not going there to the dining services saying, I wonder where this pork came from. They're just ingesting it. And when this mob of herbivores comes across here, that's the way they do. They become very unpicky and eat, and we call them equal opportunity plant pruners, okay? As opposed to when they're just spread out on a great big field and they're just moving through, where they can be real picky and they eat only the good stuff, leave the bad stuff, and the bad stuff proliferates and the good stuff gets weaker and weaker. So the way nature does it is these animals are moving, they're mobbing, and they're mowing, okay? And what's fascinating to me is, get that alfalfa, you don't get away from it. All right. What's interesting is that we live in a time in which the most foundational protocol, the most foundational template of this relationship of the herbivore to the forage to the sun, the forage roots to soil building, all of that, who cares? Who cares? Because we live in a day in which the overriding orthodoxy of our culture is we're smarter than nature. We're smarter than the design. It's interesting. There are children here, let's see, somebody under 12. Somebody under 12. Can you tell me, somebody under 12, what do you call an animal that eats only meat? Carnivore, thank you. All right, next one. What do you call, under 12 now, under no help, sorry. What do you call an animal that eats only plants? An herbivore, thank you. All right, now for the big bonus question. No cheating, under 12. What do you call an animal that eats both plants and animals? An omnivore. Okay, what is that? Cow. We just never fails. Never fails. Okay. We just said herbivore, carnivore, omnivore. What is that? Herbivore. Then, can you tell me, somebody under 12, and this is a rhetorical question, can you tell me then why our country's most expert, educated, PhD, academic, smart people took farmers like me for 30 years, 40 years almost, to free steak dinners to teach us this new scientific way of feeding herbivores, where we grind up herbivores and feed them back to herbivores. Why would they do that? We just said that that's a plant eater. You see, for 40 years, our family was ridiculed by the U.S. duh. I call it the U.S. duh. And the orthodoxy in our progressive neighbors. All right, you bunch of Luddites, you old Neanderthal barbarian. What do you want to do? Go back to hoop skirts, horse cooking, and you know, washboards. You know, you anti-science, anti-progressive, blah blah blah. You know. Well, the problem was we looked around the planet for an herbivore that ate carrion. It doesn't exist, and so we assumed. There's probably a reason that design, that order, that pattern is there for a reason. I might not know all the nuances, but as a humble steward, I'm going to submit to the pattern whether I understand it all or not. And then suddenly, 40 years later, there's this big global, oops, maybe we shouldn't not have done that. Right? Because we had bovine spongiform encephalopathy, also known as mad cow. You know, it's good to learn how to say some of these things, like bovine spongiform encephalopathy, because it makes you sound really educated. It gives you street cred. It's kind of like the names in the Old Testament. You know, you need to just learn. You don't have to say them right. Just say them fast, and everybody will think you're really smart. You see. All right. The point is that every 12-year-old in the land understands that an herbivore is supposed to eat this. What an herbivore, the distinctiveness of an herbivore, the things that make an herbivore different from an omnivore and a carnivore, is the protocol of its digestion, its rumination. The cow is basically a four-legged portable sauerkraut vat with four-wheel drive, okay, who takes this cellulitic material and ferments it and turns it into nutrient-dense material. So, by keeping the cow in her role, not putting her in a feedlot, giving her corn, not giving her dead cows. Right now our neighbors are still feeding their cows chicken manure, dead chickens, and chicken feathers. You can go right up here and see it, okay? Mix it in with enough silage and molasses and the cow will eat anything, right? Kind of like you and me. You put enough ketchup on a cow pie, you could probably eat it, right? So you know, this is what's going on, all right? But it's completely aberrant to the design of nature. Now, what's cool is we now have cool tools like computer microchip electric fencing that allows us to, with a single little wire running 8,000 volts on a quarter amp of energy, we can keep a herd of 500 cows in a 2-acre paddock for a day, and we can now mimic this patterned template, this natural template. We can mimic that on a domestic scale. We don't have fire, we don't have wolves, we don't have lions, but we have electric fence, monitoring, and we can move them actually more perfectly than nature could. By mimicking the big protocol, the natural pattern of nature. So we move the cows every day. So last night they were up in a field across the road. Today they're there. This afternoon about 4 o'clock we'll move them below the garden. Tomorrow at 4 o'clock we'll move into the next paddock. We move them from paddock to paddock to paddock. They graze everything evenly.